Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic is taking place this Saturday, and Jones is a massive favourite going into it. Some odds makers think Stipe has a 1 in 8 chance of winning. But while I think Jon Jones wins the fight, I think it's closer than that, and I can explain why. The case a lot of people tend to make for Jon Jones winning a fight is look at who he beat in the past, look at his record, look at his resume, look at his title defences, and it always seems to be names from 8 to 12 years ago. Obviously Jones may be the greatest of all time. He definitely has the greatest resume of all time. The best names on his resume being his 2 wins over Daniel Cormier. I think the best Jones ever looked in a fight was his rematch versus Daniel Cormier. That does also happen to be the fight where he tested positive for PEDs. Overall, he just looked really sharp in that fight, making use of his distance, knees, elbows, and eventually catching him with a head kick, which would send DC down in round 3. But what I've noticed about DC, and something I've also noticed about some of his other opponents that he looks the best against, is that Jones has a massive height and reach advantage over him, and Jones has only fought a few people who can match his height and reach. The first person to do that was Alexander Gustafsson, which happened to be Jones's first hard fight, with Jones having difficulty closing the distance, and since Gustafsson was also just a well-rounded martial artist in general, Jones had issues taking him down. So unlike most of Jones' opponents, he couldn't just keep him at distance, and he couldn't easily out-wrestle him, which is what Jones had been doing previously to his other opponents in the UFC, because I don't think at this point Jones had lost a single round. The next tall opponent that he fought happened to be Ovince St. Preux, and while Ovince St. Preux didn't win a round of that fight at all, OSP is that calibre of fighter where Jones should be beating him up and finishing him at least in 2 rounds. St. Preux did not deserve the fight whatsoever. He was on a 1-fight win streak. In his second to last fight, he got submitted by Glover Teixeira, and then before that lost a decision to Ryan Bader. So Jones won all 5 rounds but did nothing really significant across the 5 rounds. A third similar case was his fight versus Thiago Santos. While the height and reach advantage isn't even that significant, look at the situations where Santos has success. When he's off the back foot, countering when Jones comes in. And that brings us to Jones's most obvious case of adversity, which came in the form of Dominick Reyes. Reyes happened to be the same height as Jones, and this is one fight where I refuse to accept any opinion where Jones won the fight. It was a very clear rounds 1, 2 and 3 win for Dominick Reyes. I've only heard stupid arguments in favour of Jon Jones in this fight, like you've got to beat the champ to beat the champ. Jones got 2 takedowns even though they were in rounds 4 and 5. Reyes looked more gassed at the end of the fight. None of them seem to be able to find a case for Jones winning the first 3 rounds, which is how you win the fight, objectively according to the scoring criteria. We can see Reyes giving Jones issues with his counterboxing, usually waiting for Jones to go first so he can land the left hand. And that brings us to his opponent, Stipe Miocic. Stipe's main strength happens to be his counterboxing. He's got great power in his hands, and he's got a great ability to time people off the back foot. It's exactly how he won the world title against Fabricio Verdum, and he'd prove his chin and how good he is in high pressure situations against Francis Ngannou in the first fight. His boxing was good, his footwork was good, his head movement was good. And since Stipe can grapple, he mixed it up. There's normally 2 paths of victory for Jon Jones. If he's a better striker than his opponent, he'll outstrike them. If he's a better grappler than his opponent, he'll outgrapple them. Stipe is a better boxer than Jon Jones. He's not a better kicker. Stipe doesn't really have kicks, but he's a better boxer. Jones was the better grappler between him and Dominick Reyes, but Jones only got 2 of the 9 takedowns he attempted in that fight. So that means the fight will spend some time on the feet. The first case people make against Stipe winning is that he hasn't fought since March of 2021, where he got knocked out in 2 rounds by Francis Ngannou. But the way I see it, they're both old and washed. If we're talking inactivity, Jones has only fought for 2 minutes since March in 2020. And I thought in that brief time we saw Jones on the feet versus Ciryl Gane, he looked a bit funky, a bit uncoordinated. And I don't think he's still really shaken off the ring rust. Obviously that wouldn't matter because Jones's best asset is his wrestling, in my opinion. And he'd submit Ciryl Gane in round 1. And that's mainly why I think Jones wins. He's got more options to win. He's going to be the one shooting takedowns. Stipe, being a boxer, can be out-wrestled. But the thing is, he is good enough on the ground. We saw him at times out-wrestle DC in the clinch. So with Stipe's boxing advantage, I don't think it's a one-sided fight. I see the fight going similar to Stipe's fight with Stefan Struve. Stipe used his body shots. Struve used his kicks. Stipe caught him off the back foot plenty of times. Jones will shoot some takedowns, but I don't see it coming really easily. I think the fight will be mostly spent in the clinch, which will make it quite boring. I think on the feet they're both going to look really old and slow. And in the fight we're going to be thinking, these aren't the best 2 heavyweights in the world. It's clearly Tom Aspinall at that point. I think Jones will know that he looks rubbish. He'll either retire or fight Alex Pereira, who Jones would submit in round 1. So Jones versus Miocic, I don't think Jones knocks him out. I think he'll either win by decision or submit him in the second half of the fight. So there you have it. That's my prediction. Like and subscribe, or leave a comment. It helps the algorithm. I like views. I'm sure some of you will come back to the video if it ages well, or if it doesn't age well. Or if it doesn't age well, one of those two. Subscribe, like the video. Goodbye.